because when I knew like where it was, it wasn't an issue. But now I'm entering into unknown territory where I don't know how the programming is going to work out, if it's going to work properly, if it's going to show up in the wrong spot. And now I just have to go into my own game, and this thing that I created and have given life is going to try and kill me, you know?
All right, my friends. Hello, welcome back to another Candid conversation with. It is officially spooky month, or at least it will be by the time that this episode comes out. And I have a whole month of spooky interviews planned. I'm super excited, and I am even more excited to be starting today off with a special guest who, would you like to introduce yourself? Who are you? What do you do?
Sure. My name's Matt Reeves. I'm a horror game developer, music producer. Yeah, that's basically my life. I sit at a computer all day and try and scare people.
And you do a really good job. So for
Thank
some
you.
context, Matt and I know each other because I was playtesting for the DreadX Collection 5. They're nice enough to have me back every once in a while, and I have a blast. And I remember, I think your game, I don't know if your game was what I played first or it was somewhere in the beginning of like playtesting, but I was really impressed by Beyond the Curtain. So that is the game that ended up coming out. It was so smart. Like, it was the most smart horror game I think I've played in a while. And I was just like impressed with the quality of it. So I'm like stoked that you wanted to sit down and chat about horror, because indie horror in particular is my thing. So when did you start developing? Give me all the like how you got into it.
Sure. So I was like 10 or 11 when I started.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So like it's been like 24 years that I've been doing this, but it started out with like RPG Maker. So we're talking like real primitive games, nothing that I ever finished. You know, I finished my first game in like 2019. So it was something I just kind of did as a hobby for the longest time. And I always loved horror growing up, but you know, my games were usually like inspired by like Castlevania, you know, 2D platformers and stuff. I know you're a fan of Donkey Kong.
Yes.
So things like that. Didn't really try and make horror until I broke into 3D, which I think was in 2013. I started messing around with Unity, and then eventually to Unreal, and then something finally clicked. So it's kind of been a lifelong pursuit. Yeah.
And do you play a lot of horror games? Like you said, Castlevania platformers, but like I know devs that design for horror and they don't play horror. And I find that fascinating. So like, is that something you do in your chill time or no?
I used to. Every once in a while I'll play something, but making games takes up so much time that like I don't have the time to play games as much as I used to.
Yeah.
But you know, growing up, all the classic survival horror games like that was all I played. But yeah, more recently I'm currently addicted to Hunt Showdown, and that's about the only game that I play.
Everyone has been telling me about it for a while. People have been like, you should play it. I've literally spent my whole life on this game. I'm like, I don't know if I have the time. Like, I don't know if I can afford that.
It's not for everybody. You gotta, it's something totally different from all the other games you've played. So it's definitely worth trying and seeing if it's your thing.
Yeah. Do you ever have the urge to like develop something that isn't horror? Like, I guess, why did you stick into horror? Like, obviously it's working for you. You get it, but...
Yeah, it's probably just like the most fun I have making games. Like, you know, I grew up as a kid watching those old like fantasy movies like Willow and Labyrinth and all that. So I've also had like a love for fantasy, and I would love to do something along those lines. I do have a project I kind of started that is kind of like fantasy horror, I guess. So, you know, somewhere down the road probably, but yeah, again, I didn't really get into making horror games until I got into 3D, so my games were all over the place, but I would like to get back to my roots at some point, maybe even do some 2D stuff.
Yes.
It's just, I don't know how to do 2D in Unreal, and I don't think I would want to use Unreal for 2D because it's not really made for that, but it can.
Right.
And we'll see. But
when you started, like when you got into your journey into 3D, I know nothing about game dev, number one. You probably can tell, but the concept of going from 2D to 3D and making a game look as polished as like a lot of the games I've seen like you do, and Darkstone Digital, that's what I'm thinking of. Like those are really polished looking games. Like what is the learning curve for something? Like are you formally trained or you just like taught yourself?
Most of what I do is self-taught, but there was some degree of like initial training that I had. So in high school, I took a game development course for 3 years, and really like we didn't actually finish any games. Like our intent was each year to make a game, and nothing got finished, but that's where I learned how to do 3D modeling. And for a long time, it was just something I kind of did for fun. I would just make random 3D models of things just to like look at it and be like, oh, that's cool. But there was no knowledge about how to incorporate that into an actual game. So I just kind of did 2D games for fun, and then would just make random 3D models. And then I actually almost just gave up on the whole thing because I never finished a game. And it wasn't until I started learning Unreal Engine, which kind of bridged the gap for me because you can do visual scripting. So they have like, it's like a grid-based system, and you have these nodes that you plug together instead of typing a bunch of lines of code.
Oh.
And I'm a very visual person, so that was where things really clicked into place, because I had done a little bit of programming, but there's just a disconnect where my brain is just not built for that.
It's some people it's not. I get it.
Yeah, so once I figured out how to do that, then it was like, okay, now I kind of see what's going on. And so then it was just tons of YouTube tutorials and experimentation and
that's
all
so
that,
much patience. I like every time I talk to someone who like indie developers specifically, I could never, because the patience you guys have to learn everything. And you said you don't just program, like you 3D model and you produce music, which is like a whole nother thing. Has music always been a part of your life, or you're like, well, I need music for my games, so like I'm gonna go make music?
I actually pursued music first. I've been doing game development slightly longer. Like I started playing drums when I was 12.
Nice.
But I wanted to be I was in a band, and I thought like that was where I wanted to go and get signed and tour the world and all that fun stuff. And somewhere along the line, I realized that wasn't in the cards for me. But it was like taking a look backwards and realizing, oh, my whole life I've made games, on the side, but I love this because it takes everything that I love to do, making art, making music, telling stories, and then combines them into one. So music was something that I started off playing drums, but I grew up in, a musical family. My mom was always playing piano or singing something. So it just kind of was in the genes, I guess. And then, few years into playing drums, I started producing music, just making simple beats on the computer. And then, I don't know, I just ended up spending all of my time in my bedroom either making music or games or whatever, and it just eventually kind of came together. So
you're like the quintessential game developer. Like you can do it all. You're like, I can write stories, I can do music. Yeah. Like everything just kind of came into place for you. That's awesome.
Well, I've always just been that way. I like to do things myself, and maybe I've just got like a serious control problem or something, where like
that's very relatable.
But yeah, but I mean, I've worked with other people and made some really cool stuff. But when it comes to my own art, like I don't know. I always feel like I have such a clear vision for what I want, and trying to communicate that to other people. It's like I'd rather just take the time to learn how to do it myself.
Yeah,
it's worked so far.
Great. No, you're doing great. You've made several games at this point. I know on your itch profile I can see a couple, but I don't know if there was one before that never got published. Like, what was the first game you finished? You said in 2019.
Yeah, so that was He Keeps Me Here. I did it for a game jam. Epic Games does a yearly mega jam, and I had never tried anything like that, but I had kind of gotten to a point with Unreal where I was like, okay, I think I could finish something. And I decided, you know what, let's just go for it. I'm just going to enter and see what I make in a week. And that pressure was what forced me to not be a perfectionist and actually finish something. Because anything I had made up until then, I would have a really cool idea that I liked, and I'd start developing it, and then I'd get lost in the details and spend too much time fleshing it out, and then I'd be like, this is going to take forever. But, doing a game jam, it's like, I have a week to make something.
You have a deadline.
So I have to just say, good enough, good enough, good enough. And, so I released that, and I remember just, like, the first time watching someone play a game that I made in my living room and seeing like their experience with it was just like the coolest thing. And then it was like, okay, I finished one game, I can finish two, So that year, I think within a year I finished 5 jam games and then a demo for my game Nemesis.
Wow.
And then the next year I didn't finish anything. So
you burnt all of your all the fuel in one go, and then you were like, and we're resting.
Now I'm just floating out in space with no more fuel left.
Well, hopefully you get the fuel back. I mean, you obviously made Beyond the Curtain this year, and that was this year, right? That was this year. Okay.
Yes.
And you're currently, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about it. I know that it exists in the world. I don't know how much you want to share, but you have a new game you're working on. It is a 70s slasher horror. You want to talk about it? It's really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's called Family is Nothing, with special voice acting from the host here.
Could be me. I don't know.
Could be, might not. So it's funny, that started off as it was going to be like a little Halloween thing that I wanted to throw together. Basically, I spent like a year and a half making a mobile game for this company, and it kind of like totally, I was on this roll doing my games, got the attention of this company. They wanted me to make a game, so I made a game for them, and that's what like really took away all my momentum. And so Beyond the Curtain was me like kind of coming out of that, and I got really, really burnt out. So I'm kind of like starting over in a way. But I remember, so it was almost 2 years ago. It was October, and I was like, every Halloween I want to do something fun, but I always get the idea, and it's like October 21st or something, and I'm like, oh, why didn't I plan something sooner?
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Let's do like just the quickest little personal game jam. Let's just make a game. And I'm like, okay, it's like October 27th, so I have like 3 days if I want to release something on Halloween. And so I just worked my butt off for 3 days, and I made like a lot of substance, but I was like, there's no way I'm going to have something playable, for Halloween. So I just kind of worked on it for a couple weeks and kind of built like the basis of something. And then I was like, you know what, maybe next Halloween I'll release this. But I was also still working on that mobile game. So I kind of just shelved it, finished the mobile game, went back to Family is Nothing. And because I had wanted to make it in 3 days, the graphics were like super low fidelity, low resolution. And I was like, you know what, if I want this to be a proper game, I want it to look nice. So then I had to spend a bunch of time converting all the textures and upscaling everything. And then Halloween came and went. And so,
as it does.
Yeah, and it's about to be Halloween again for the third time.
Yeah.
So, it's been kind of just a crazy time, recovering from like severe burnout, and then making this game, and then I want to get this out and get back to Nemesis, which is what most people who know me for. Family is Nothing is takes place in the late 70s. I always tell people who have tested my game, if you can smell the room that you're in, then I did it right.
You did it right.
You got that classic shag carpet, the wood panel walls, all of that. Yeah,
so good.
The creepy wallpaper with terrible color palettes, and
it was really a time. It was really a stylish time, the 70s.
Yeah.
And
I hadn't done anything in the 70s yet. I've kind of dabbled in different times. I've got one that's in the 80s, although it was a short game jam game, and I don't think anyone realized it was supposed to be in the 80s because I kind of threw it together a little quick, and it takes place in another dimension anyway. But yeah, I thought it'd be cool to
anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
In any dimension.
That's right. There is a parallel dimension where people are still in the 80s.
Always.
Forever. It's
and
always the 80s.
And I would love to be there.
Yes, so would I. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. I could say a lot about the game. So if you have any like particular stuff you're curious about, or you want to move on, totally up to you.
Yeah, I'm mostly just curious where the inspiration came from. Like, I know you said you wanted it to be, you know, within a certain amount of time, but like, what gave you the idea to be like, oh, it's going to be a 70s slasher horror?
Okay, so this is so weird.
I love it. Let's go.
Yeah. So the initial idea came to me while I was falling asleep, and I was literally in bed, like half awake, and just I think it was like a half dream, like the beginning of a dream or something. I don't know. It was super weird. I just saw, you know, there's an opening scene where you're in the living room, sitting in this chair, looking into the kitchen, and there's this woman talking to you, and I just saw a clear image of that in my mind as I was like passing out. And I don't know where it came from, but I was like, you know what? I could turn that into something. And, and it just kind of started with that. And so when I decided I wanted to make a game for Halloween, I just started with that scene. And yeah, I don't know. It's weird. There's also another chunk of the game that came from something that just popped into my head. I don't know why, but sometimes I'll see scenes of things in my mind that are just super bizarre.
Yeah. But I feel like that makes for a really good artist and developer, like if the ideas are going to come to you. And I'm sure it sucks when you're having like a dry spell, right? Where it's basically writer's block and you're not getting anything. So you're like, shit, like what do I do?
Yeah. And another thing too, like being, you know, a game taking place in a big house, like I've typically avoided that because I know that's become a cliche, you know, like a spooky mansion. But because this was intended to be a short game, I was like, I'm just going to do something tried and true that I know works.
Yeah.
And then once I decided to make it a full-length game, then I was like, okay, well, I have to find a way to make this more than just, you know, exploring a big haunted house. So there's a lot of other stuff that happens in places you go that people will see eventually. But
I'm excited. It's going to be so cool. I mean, I'm biased obviously, but just from looking at like what the trailer is and what I've seen of it, it looks really cool. And I'm excited for you to finish that out. I want to go back really quick to the topic of burnout, because I feel like every dev I talk to, that is the biggest problem. Not even indie devs. It's just like every game dev I talk to, that is the biggest problem is burnout. Like, how do you even recover from something like that? How do you not lose your passion for game development when you're just like, I'm out?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm still figuring that out. I wouldn't say I've completely come out of it, but I did finish a game, so that was like really huge for me. Yeah, thank you. So the mobile game that I did, it was supposed to be a 6-month contract and basically making an entire game in 6 months. And I even knew from the beginning, I'm like, I'm really going to be pushing it, but I know that this opportunity would be huge for me, and I'd be a madman to pass it up, so I just went for it. It ended up being a 1.5-year process, but I was only paid for 6 months.
Oh my god!
And between that and making someone else's game, it just, everything in me like died working on that. You know, it was a great learning experience. But yeah, I'm definitely still, I think, mentally recovering from just feeling so trapped, like, you know, I'm bound by contract to finish this. So for me, I think being able to switch from that to working on something I wanted to make, you know, this game. And then the thing that I didn't realize too is I needed to take a step back once I finished that mobile game, but I didn't. I was like, okay, I need to get right back into it and waste no time. And so I spent just a solid year working on Family is Nothing and didn't really give myself time to kind of take a step back. And so I think that like prolonged that recovery process. And I don't know. I don't really know what I did specifically other than just I don't know. It's weird. Like I think I'm mostly recovered.
Yeah.
But I got to a point where, doing the DreadX game, I was like, I need to get something out. And I think that helped a lot. Just finishing something smaller, and then taking occasional breaks.
Breaks are good.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the biggest thing too. Even if you just take a week away from something, especially if it's something that even though you're burnt out, you still really love whatever that thing is that you're making. If you take a week, 2 weeks away from it, where you say I'm not touching it at all. Something's going to start crawling back, and then you're going to be like, okay, I kind of want to go back and work on that again. So
I feel like that's how you're in it. Like, this is the thing you're meant to do. Like, have you ever considered doing anything else?
Up until I decided to pursue game development, oh yeah, but once I started this journey, it was just like full tilt. This is what I'm gonna do, and I've never looked back. And even through Burnout, I was like, this is something temporary. I will get through it. I know that I still love doing this. I do it every day. I just got to press forward and keep going. So right now I'm trying to get the game published, and that's kind of been a nightmare.
Red tape.
I'm on lots of it. I'm on like the third publishing company that I'm talking to. The first two were a no, and this one I haven't gotten an answer yet. I'm still waiting. But it's one of those things where I'm like, this is either going to be third time's a charm or 3 strikes you're out. And if they say no, I think I'm just going to go back to trying to publish it myself, which means I'll probably have to just get another day job again. And yeah, so basically I would do that and then work on the game on the side. And then I don't remember where I was going with that.
That's okay. I'm curious, like on the back end, because I don't know that much about the red tape of getting a game published. Like, what's the advantage other than obviously there's financial support?
Yeah. Well, that was the biggest thing for me. We had savings that we were living off of for me to just focus on making games full time. And then, once that started running out, there was actually a publisher who reached out to me because of a Twitter ad that I did. And it was looking really promising, like that was going to go through, because someone came to me and asked if I was interested in publishing. But in the end, they didn't have like a final say, and the company said no because they didn't feel like it was a good fit for what they were trying to do. And so the guy I was talking to was like really shocked by that because we thought it was a surefire thing. So it was really just like getting funding that kind of drew me towards publishing, because originally I was like totally against it. I was like, I'm going to do everything myself. It's just a stupid prideful thing that I'm trying to work out of. And so once I kind of came around to the possibility of publishing, then I kind of leaned into that. But it's just been 2 no's so far. So I don't know. It's hard to do independent game development, and it's one of those things where you can do something that goes viral and everyone's excited about it and it just kind of sells itself, or you just build slowly over time until you've got streams of income. And it's been more of a slow burn for me. And I'm kind of in like a weird phase right now where I don't really know how things are going to work out. Like I said, I'm probably just going to have to go back to working a day job and doing games on the side until I'm able to release something and hopefully get to a point where that's bringing in enough income that I can transition back to full-time game development. But the passion is still there. I still love what I'm doing. There's people who are still asking about Nemesis, which has been on hold. And it's just, yeah, it's pure chaos.
Oh, but of course. And that's the thing about indie game dev that I don't think a lot of people see or understand, is the fact that like you're not just developing a game, like you are your own promotion company. And sometimes you get lucky and something does go viral and you get it out to the masses, and sometimes like you don't. And most
Yeah.
times you don't. And that's really, really tough. And a lot of people are not used to promoting themselves like that. Like, I know you're on Twitter and I think you have an Instagram and you've got like Itch, obviously, and Patreon. Like, do you dabble in TikTok? Like, that's kind of, I feel like where I see a lot of horror games start pushing. And like, have you ventured out to like, be like, okay, I got to start promoting on like these apps?
It's funny. I know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I don't. It's one of those things where I get so lost in my work and so focused on making progress on that front that, all my social medias are pretty barren at the moment.
Who has the time? Who has the fucking time?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know what I need to do. And I mean, I have like zero marketing background. It's something I've had to teach myself. And I've learned a lot. I'm just terrible at implementing it because it's just not the way my brain thrives in chaos. Yeah. It doesn't thrive in order. So it's like I've had to learn that kind of discipline as I go. And I've just really spent some time just focusing on work. But sometime soon, I know that I need to really put a big focus on marketing and who knows.
I know I feel badly for like, because you have like the whole package and it's like, oh, it's that thing that I don't want to do because it's structured, right? That sucks. And I know that a lot of people are already like, man, I don't want to go near TikTok. Like, that's for kids. I get that aspect of it because I've heard it many, many times. So I'm curious where you or maybe DreadXP found you, or like how did that partnership form?
Well, I remember when they made their Discord server, I found them on Twitter. Just a lot of mutuals were responding to it, and so I jumped into their server when they first created that, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. I like what they're doing, and so I was kind of there from the beginning of that, but didn't really have like a connection, but Abby Scruncho, so she was working with Vitis Games for a while, and I had become friends with Vitis. So when they started or I think they were working on stuff like right before I became friends with him. So I met Abby through him, and then when she started working for DreadX, she's a big fan of Nemesis. And when they did Collection 5, she was like, Matt, we want you in this collection. She's like, it's entertainment horror. She's like, this is perfect for you, so you got to come do it. So it was really just Abby that she was my in for that.
That's awesome. She's like just a great person in general. I feel like she's just perfect for that company. So I'm glad that happened. How did you figure out you were just coming off of Burnout. Where did your idea come from for Beyond the Curtain? Like, was it easy because you were back in the game jam kind of deadline that you were like, okay, it's not a game jam, by the way, DreadXP, you didn't hear me say that. I know they're very adamant it's not a game jam. But yeah, how did you kind of get the inspiration for that coming out of Burnout?
I mean, my first thought was, what's something in entertainment horror that I could do, and what's something new that I haven't messed with. And I had been thinking for a while about doing something with like dummy puppets, but I thought, what if I did more like marionette puppets? That'd be kind of fun.
They were so creepy.
Yeah, there's something about some lifeless thing hanging from strings imitating life that's just really uncanny and unsettling, so I decided to go with that, and it was just really as simple as that. And then once I had that idea, I had kind of like a picture of a ceiling so high you can't see the top, and it's just darkness, and then a bunch of puppets hanging all around you, and that's just kind of like my initial vision for it, and I just kind of started with there and let it lead me where it did. So,
and it was cool. It was smart. I remember distinctly because I showed my chat when I played it on stream like a couple weeks ago. I was like, listen, guys, I play tested this and this dev.
Wait, you played it again recently?
Sure. I did. I played it again on stream like a couple weeks ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and watch it.
Yeah. I was showing my chat. I was like, look what this dev did. You guys know how I get lost all the time? Okay, well, he's doing this thing where the doors close behind you so you can't get lost, but you feel like you're lost. And I remember when I play tested it, I was like, holy shit, those walls are closing behind me. And you're like, yeah, I did that on purpose so you can't get turned around. And I was like, why hasn't everyone done that?
Yeah, here's the thing that's funny. When I designed that area, that was obviously like a concern, and I wanted people to enter that area and just feel totally disoriented.
Yeah.
And before I added the doors, everyone who played it got through it just fine. Like, no one got lost or turned around.
You hadn't met me yet.
Yeah, but there was still that thought, someone is going to get lost in here. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to have this creepy door that just slides up behind them as they progress. So even if they do get to a point where they're like, where am I? And they go the wrong way, they can't.
Yeah.
I also did add a very soft sliding sound.
Yes.
So if you pay attention, you can actually hear it slowly closing.
Yes.
And that ended up, it was a practical thing that added something kind of creepy,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now there's doors closing behind me. Now I don't like this.
I loved it. And I think you also you can correct me because it had been a while since I play tested, but at the end I think we had said something like, you never get to turn around and appreciate the monster that's like coming after you. That may have been something that happened because I don't remember at the end those marionettes that you have to turn around and like face. I don't remember those being a part of it. Maybe they were. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But like I was like, oh shit, I have to turn around and do this while I'm being chased. Like, this is scary.
Yeah, no, that was there from the beginning. And there's only one of them that actually follows you. You're talking about the ones that stab you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one who follows you, and he's just hanging in the shadows. You can actually go find him, and you'll see like the gleam of a knife if you know where he's at.
That's creepy.
But you have to pass a certain threshold before he'll start to follow you. And I remember when I tested that the first time, it followed me, and I turned around, and it was right in my face. Just head to toe chills. I love saying this. My least favorite part about making horror games is having to test it myself.
I wonder about that all the time. Like, how many times do you like scare yourself playing a game?
All the time. Sorry.
It's back. You're good.
Yeah, all the time. So with Nemesis, for example, when I first made it, there was a timer just going in the background, and once it ended, a secret wall would open up, and this killer clown would slowly walk towards you. And I knew when he would start following me. I knew where he would come from. But once I like implemented like random spawning and different locations. Before I tested it for the first time, I actually had to give myself a pep talk. I sat there and I'm like, all right, Matt, you got this. Because when I knew like where it was, it wasn't an issue. But now I'm entering into unknown territory where I don't know how the programming is going to work out, if it's going to work properly, if it's going to show up in the wrong spot. And now I just have to go into my own game, and this thing that I created and have given life is going to try and kill me, And it's terrible.
That's really funny.
Love it,
That's like, to me, that is the equivalent of like when people build Mario Maker levels that are really stupid hard, but like you have to beat it to be able to publish it. It's like you have to face what you've made. Like you've made your bed and now you have to lay in it.
Yeah, it's always tough at first. I usually get used to it because I play test it so much that the scares wear off pretty quick.
Yeah.
But initially it always sucks. And I have to be brave and play my own games. But that's my barometer. If I can scare the crap out of myself, then I know that I've made something scary, because it takes a lot to really scare me. So
yeah. Yeah, have you been watching other people? I mean, obviously you're on Twitch and you have popped into streams here and there, but like, what has people's reaction been? Have you been able to catch people playing Beyond the Curtain or seen YouTube videos?
Yeah, initially, there's always like a big wave of videos and streams that come out with the release, and so I tried to catch as many as I could, and say hi to everybody, and any YouTube videos I found, I always make a playlist of my games, and any video I find, I add it to it. And yeah, most people seem pretty terrified, which is always the goal. That's what I want. And I remember when you were first testing it, I'm like, you're kind of being really quiet, and I'm like, I think that
it's because I'm
hoping
scared.
You're scared, but you were like, no, you will know that I'm scared if I start singing.
Yes.
And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna wait until she starts singing, and I was like, I think she's going to. And sure enough, you were playing, and then all of a sudden you start going, I'm going to go up here, I'm going to take a left, and then I'm going to turn this way. I'm like, okay, I've done it.
And I still, because I think when I play tested, I got lucky, and my game was like a little bit bugged, and so I didn't die when I was supposed to. So like I was
you couldn't die yet.
Oh, that was what it was. I was like, I'm just gonna keep running through here. Yep. Like I still, when I played it on stream, I was singing and I was scared.
Good. I'm gonna go back and watch that. Absolutely.
It was so good. Well, awesome. I think we're about at time, but if you want to shout out anything, plug whatever socials, anything, go for it.
Sure. Twitter, Instagram, Matt Reeves Dev. YouTube is Matt Reeves Production. You can also go to mattreevesproduction.com. Family is Nothing is on Steam. Please go wishlist it. I don't know when it's coming out yet. Still figuring out if it's getting published or not, but hopefully sometime soon. Yeah.
Yeah, and wishlisting helps a ton, by the way, for
yes, it does.
Visibility. So for people who are like curious as to how to help indie devs, wishlisting, I mean, just spread the word.
Please do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it was a blast.
Super fun. And that is it for us. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.